is that I was like timing myself to make sure that I kept this succinct, because I know I can go on. So earlier this week I was talking with someone and I said, well, on an unconscious level, or is it subconscious? I never know which one to use. So let's just say, without knowing why. So it was a bit of serendipity to see that Kent would be teaching today on the unconscious. And that led me to finally look up the difference instead of just stumbling over it every time it came up in conversation. My very quick research revealed that the two terms are used somewhat interchangeably, but I did find an article that differentiated them. Picture the iceberg metaphor, or is it an analogy? That's another one I always have to look up. It refuses to stick in my brain, but picture that iceberg anyway. What's conscious is the tip of the iceberg, what we can see and what we think we know. What's in our subconscious is just below the surface, not in our waking awareness, but retrievable with some reflection. The unconscious is not in our awareness and is much more challenging to retrieve. Those memories were thrown overboard with a heavy anchor in cold, deep water and are now probably underneath that iceberg. Now, that's a very simplistic layperson understanding, but I'm going to go with it because it helps me to understand how important the subconscious is to being a fully alive, creative, and spiritual human being. And reflecting on this brought to mind two different ideas. The first comes from a talk called Solitude and Leadership by William Deresiewicz, which I know I've probably at least once brought up in a talk before, but it's one of my favorite ways of thinking about how we think. He says, I find for myself that my first thought is never my best thought. My first thought is always someone else's. It's always what I've already heard about the subject, always the conventional wisdom. It's only by concentrating, sticking to the question, being patient, letting all the parts of my mind come into play, that I arrive at an original idea. The second thought is from Georgia O'Keeffe, who wrote, in a way, nobody sees a flower. Really, it is so small. We haven't time, and to see takes time, like to have a friend takes time. My first thought is never my best thought, and to see takes time. These are just two invitations to slow down and dive beneath the surface to see what lurks in the subconscious waters. If it's true that memories drop into our subconscious and unconscious because we need to forget them in order to survive or to be socially acceptable, then it's no wonder that our weird and wild selves get buried. If we let them loose, we might get hurt. We might be rejected. Yesterday, I attended a virtual workshop led by Michael Mead, host of the Living Myth podcast, and he made a comment that the word weird comes from the Old English weird, W-Y-R-D, meaning destiny. The adjective in late Middle English originally meant having the power to control destiny. Now, this is an archaic usage, and now we think of weird as meaning that someone or something is unworldly or otherworldly or strange. But if you go far enough back to that original definition, to relegate our weirdness to our subconscious, or more sadly, to that really deep unconscious, means to deny our power to control our destiny. I'm going to be reflecting on that over the next few weeks. That what's weird about me is what's wonderful about me. And am I patient enough and brave enough to let that weirdness come out of hiding? I think about my love of abstract art and photography, and I wonder if that's how my subconscious weirdness is trying to heal and express itself. I wonder if you'll join me in that reflection. What's accessible to you if you slow down, you be still, you get past your first thought, your first impression of a flower? What's waiting beneath the surface to be reclaimed and remembered? Are you willing to shine the light on the mystery and what's weird and wonderful about you? I hope you are, because what's revealed is part of your destiny.